Good day everyone, you are welcome to my YouTube channel because today we'll be treating the 40 likely JAMB Biology questions that you are going to see in your JAMB exam. So we'll be treating 40 questions today and I'll be explaining everything. So stay tuned to the end of this particular video because I have brought a seasoned biology tutor to take you guys from my JAMB tutorial today. So let us get right into the video.
Alright, so the first question says, a characteristic exhibited by all living organisms is, so option A, we have sexual reproduction. Option B says aerobic respiration. Option C says the ability to move from one place to another, and option D, excretion. So let's analyze all these options and get the correct answer to this question. Option A says sexual reproduction. So if you look at this option, you discover that not all living organisms sexually reproduce. Some organisms like amoeba undergo some another form of reproduction called asexual reproduction. So this is not the correct answer. So let's go to the second option, aerobic respiration. Not all living organisms carry out aerobic respiration. Some living organisms carry out anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is respiration that is oxygen based, that is a respiration that requires the use of oxygen. And some organisms also respire but they don't make use of oxygen. So this is not also the correct answer. So option C, the ability to move from one place to another. Yeah, obviously you should know that this also is not correct. The reason is some organisms, for example plants and some other bacteria that lack locomotion organelles. That locomotion organelles is the organelles they use for movement. So they cannot move from one place to another. So this makes option C also not correct. So let's go to the last option, option D, excretion. So this is the correct answer. So the correct answer is excretion. So let's move to the second question. So number 2 question says, which level of organization is an onion bulb? Which level of an organization is an onion bulb? And option A says tissue, B organism, and option C says organ, and option D system. So let's analyze these options and get the correct answer. So if you look at tissues, what are tissues? Tissues are aggregate of cells, similar cells that carry out a specific function. So onion bulb does not exist at this level of organization. So this is wrong. So let's look at organism. Organism is aggregate of organ systems. So they are aggregate of similar organ systems that carry out a specific function. So, and if you look at this option also, onion bulb does not exist at this level of organization. So this option is also not correct. So let's option C. Option C says organ. So what is an organ? An organ is a group of tissues that perform a specific function. And if you look at an onion bulb is an organ because it's made up of a group of tissues that perform a specific function. So the correct answer to this question is option C, an organ. So organ is the correct answer to this question. So option D, system. System is just like group of organs that aggregate together to perform a specific function. So this is not the correct answer. So the correct answer to the question is organ, and I have marked it here. So let's go to the next question. Question 3 says metabolic production of urea is carried out in the so option A says urinary bladder and kidney. Option B says pancreas. Option C says kidney and Mappesian tubule, and the last option, option D, says liver. So let's analyze these options and pick the correct answer. Option A, urinary bladder and kidney. So you need to understand what urinary bladder is and also what a kidney is. So urinary bladder is an organ that is found in the excretory system, and it is used to store. It's like a storage house of urine. So it is used to store urine in the body. Not urea, I said urine, because urea is just a component of urine. We still have other components of urine like the water and salt and the likes. So that is what urinary bladder. You should know urinary bladder is not the answer. So this option is automatically wrong. Kidney is just an excretory organ, and it is used to eliminate, like from the word excretory organ, it's used to eliminate metabolic waste products from the body, and it does that by blood filtration. So by filtering the blood, so it will filter out those waste products so that it can be passed out from the body. Automatically, option A is not the correct option. So let's see option B. Option B says pancreas. Pancreas, it has basically two functions, and the number one function of pancreas is that it can secrete digestive enzymes. So it's an organ in our body that secretes digestive enzymes, and digestive enzymes like lipase, like amylase, so and so on. And this digestive enzyme helps or aids digestion in the body. So it helps us to digest the food with the food substances that we take in. Also, pancreas can serve as an endocrine gland by what? By secreting some hormones like insulin, glucagon, and so on. So it secretes some hormones also. So basically, pancreas does not function as does not produce urea. So metabolic production of urea is not being carried out by pancreas. So option B is also wrong. So let's see option C. So we've analyzed that kidney is wrong, and mammalian tubule. Mammalian tubule is also an excretory organ that is found in the insect. So it's an excretory organ that is found in the insect. So basically, option C is also wrong. So the correct answer to this question is option D, which is liver. So metabolic production of urea is carried out in the liver. So, and let me explain how this occurs. If you take in protein, for instance, and this protein will be breaking down, will undergo catabolism and be breaking down to amino acid. And this amino acid will undergo what we call deamination. And all these processes occur in the liver. We undergo deamination, and this deamination is to break it down further to ammonia. And ammonia is toxic, is a toxic substances in the body. It can harm the body. So this ammonia have to be detoxified or be broken down further to a less toxic substances called urea. So metabolic production of urea is carried out in the liver. So let's go to question 4. So question 4 says the companion cells are part of the companion cells are part of the. So option A says pericycle, option B phloem, option C pit, option D xylem. So let's analyze this option and pick out the correct answer. If you look at option A, pericycle is just they are just layers of cells that's found in the roots, and these layers of cells are responsible for the production of lateral roots. So pericycle does not have companion cells. So pericycle is not the correct answer. So let's look at option B, phloem. Phloem is a tissue that comprises of 4 basic cells. 4 basic cells, and I'll give you the acronyms. So the acronyms is S C P F. Let me write it very well. SCPF. So phloem has 4 basic cells. So S stands for sieve elements, S stands for sieve elements, C stands for companion cells, and P stands for parenchyma, and F stands for fiber. So the correct answer to the question is phloem, because phloem has what? Companion cells. So let's look at these 2 options. Let's just analyze them. Pit is just the central portion of a stem. So it's like the central portion of a stem, and this pit does not have companion cells. So automatically the wrong answer. So and xylem also has 4 basic cells. So 4 basic cells, just like phloem, but xylem does not have companion cells. So the 4 basic cells that we can find in xylem is, I'll give you the acronyms. The acronym is TVPF. So T stands for trachea, V stands for versus elements, P stands for parenchyma, and F stands for fiber. So, but if you look at it, you cannot find companion cells. So xylem is also the wrong option. So let's go to the next question. So the next question says the total number of ATP produced during glycolysis is, the total number of ATP produced during glycolysis is, option A says 3 molecules, option B says 2 molecules, option C says 4 molecules, option D says 6 molecules. So how do we answer this question? First of all, you need to understand what glycolysis is. So glycolysis is just the breaking down of 6 carbon sugar to a 3 carbon sugar that we know as pyruvate or pyruvic acid. So glycolysis is the breaking down of 6 carbon sugar, example glucose, to a 3 carbon sugar that we know as pyruvate or pyruvic acid. And this is the first stage of respiration. During this breakdown from a 6 carbon sugar to a 3 carbon sugar that we know as pyruvate, there is a release of energy in form of ATP. ATP means adenosine triphosphate. So, and the amount of ATP that is being released as byproduct is 2. So the correct answer to this question is option B, which is 2 molecules. So the amount of ATP that is being released in during glycolysis is 2 molecules. And Krebs cycle is the second stage. Let me quickly explain that. Krebs cycle is the second stage after glycolysis, and the amount of ATP that is being released from Krebs cycle is 36. So the total amount of ATP that is released during respiration is 38. That is aerobic respiration is 38 ATP. So the correct answer to this question is 2 molecules. So let's go to the next question. Question C says that the major building block of an organism is, so option A says nitrogen, option B says carbon, option C says water, and option D is sulfur. I know a lot of people who have gone for water, but water is not the correct option to this question. And if you look at an organism is made up of biomolecules. And when you're talking about biomolecules, you are talking about carbohydrates, your protein, your lipids. And all of these biomolecules contains some of these elements, but carbon is present in all these biomolecules. Are you with me? So carbon is the most abundant element in the body. So the major building block of an organism is carbon. So carbon is the correct option to this question. So nitrogen is present in the body, but is less than carbon, and also sulfur. So the correct option to this question is carbon. So let's go to the next question. Question 7 says mouthparts adapted for piercing and sucking is found in, so option A we have housefly, option B we have grasshopper, so option C says mosquito, and option D cockroach. So let's get the correct answer. Now housefly, the mouthpart that housefly possess is called a spongy mouthpart, and this spongy mouthpart enables them to suck up liquid substances. So sometimes they release saliva on the food substances to liquefy it, and then they suck it up. Housefly does not bite or pierce. So let's go to grasshopper. So grasshopper, the mouth adapted for grasshopper is biting and chewing. So they bite and they chew. So grasshopper they bite and they chew. And for mosquito, the mouth part that adapted for mosquito. This grasshopper, they has what's called a strong mandible that enable them to bite and chew. But in the case of mosquito is the correct answer, because mosquito has the mouth part for mosquito is piercing and sucking. The mouth part is adapted for piercing and sucking. So there's a strong proboscis. than leaving them to pierce and suck human blood. You understand? And cockroach, the mouth part is chewing. Their mouth part is attended for what? Chewing. So they just like similar to what? Grasshopper. So the correct option to this question is option C, which is what? Mosquito. So let's go to this. So question 8. Bilateral symmetry, cylindrical bodies, double openings are characteristic features of dash. So A, we have nematodes. B says hydra. C, protozoa. D, protists. So which of these is the correct answer to the question? So let's analyze it. Let's start from option D. Protists. Protists are those ones are from the kingdom we call Protista. The kingdom Protista is a very broad kingdom that comprises of both the protozoa and the algae. You understand? The protozoa and the algae, because we have both plant-like protists and animal-like protists. So organisms under these ones, the examples of organisms under this one is Chlamydomonas and your amoeba. And these organisms, they do not have double openings, they do not have bilateral symmetry, and they do not have cylindrical bodies. So this option C is also wrong. So in the case of hydra has just one opening. They have just one opening, so they do not have a double openings. So they have just one opening, and they have a radial symmetry and not a bilateral symmetry. Nematode is the correct option here, because nematode they have cylindrical bodies, they have double openings, that is mouth and anus. So they have double openings. So the mouth and anus, that is a complete digestive system. Unlike hydra, they just have one opening, that's incomplete digestive system. So and they have what? Bilateral symmetry. That means if you divide them, bilateral symmetry means that if you divide the organism into, if you divide the center into two parts, the right and the left, the part of the body here will be the same with the part of the body here, like will be equal. So if you have your hand here, you have your hand here. So if you have one part of eyes here, you have one part. So that is what we call bilateral symmetry. I hope you get that. So nematode is the correct option or the answer to this question. So let's go to the next question. All right. So question 9 says the process by which plants lost water to the atmosphere is. Now let's look at this question very well. So let's look at the option. Option A says transpiration. Option B, glutation. Option C, translocation. Option D, evaporation. So let's analyze this option. Let's start from option D. Now evaporation is the conversion of liquid to water vapor. Understand? So the conversion of liquid to what? Water vapor. And this is not a process by which plants lost water to the atmosphere. It's just conversion of liquid to water vapor, and it's not necessarily the process by which plants lost water to the atmosphere. So evaporation is not the answer. So let's look at translocation. What is translocation? Translocation is the movement of nutrients, particularly sugars, that is released during photosynthesis. So and the movement of these nutrients from probably the leaves where they are stored, or a part of the plant where they are stored, to another part. So is what we call translocation. So and which is not even related to what is not related to what the loss of water to the atmosphere. So this is also wrong. So glutation. Now glutation and transpiration. Take note. Listen to this. Glutation and transpiration. Glutation is the process by which plants lost water, but not water vapor. Not water vapor to the atmosphere, but by which plants lost water in liquid. You understand? Or lost liquid water. You understand? Water in liquid form. You understand? So and which is entirely different from transpiration, by which is the process by which plants lost water or water vapor to the atmosphere. So the correct answer here is transpiration. Glutation is just similar, but is not the correct answer. So transpiration is the process by which plants lost water vapor to the atmosphere through what? The stomata. And the stomata is found what? In the leaves. So through the stomata. And this glutation is through the hydatodes, which is also found at the edges of the leaves, but is what the process by which plants lose water in liquid form, and the water lost in liquid form is what we call rotation, and not transpiration. Transpiration is water vapor lost to the atmosphere. Now, if plant lose water vapor to the atmosphere, it's transpiration. So let's go to the next question. Question 10. So the question 10 says the transmission of diseases through contamination of food is an economic importance of dash. The transmission of diseases through the contamination of food is an economic importance of dash. So when you hear the economic importance, it's trying to say what they can do, whether it's advantageous or disadvantageous. So the transmission of disease through the contamination of food is an economic importance of dash. A, mosquitoes. B, we have cockroaches. C, butterflies. D, bees. So let's analyze the option and get the correct answer. Now, mosquitoes cannot cause disease through contamination of food. So mosquito does not contaminate your food. Mosquito will just what? Pierce and suck the blood and release release plasmodium to cause malaria. But mosquito does not contaminate your food. Now that means mosquito is a wrong option. So let's look at the second option. Option B, cockroaches. Cockroaches can carry some microorganisms that we know them as pathogens, because they can cause disease causing microorganisms, pathogens. And once they carry this microorganisms, they can perch on your food and release them. And it's this microorganism that will not cause disease once you take the food in like that. This microorganism cannot cause disease in you. So that means cockroaches act as a vector of carrying that pathogens that contaminates the food, and which causes disease, which transmit disease. You understand? Then butterfly is related to flowers. It's not does not cause disease through contamination of food. Likewise, bees. So the correct option here is cockroaches. So cockroaches is correct option. So mark that. Cockroaches is the correct option here. So let's go to the next question. All right. So question 11 says the first organism evolved from which of the following habitats? So option A, terrestrial. Option B, arboreal. Option C, aquatic. Option D, desert. So the first organism evolved from which of the following habitats? The right question to this question is aquatic. Alright, so the first organism were living on land, but their ancestors is a lobe fin fish, which is living in water. So they are living on land, but if they want to reproduce, they go into the water. So like amphibians, you understand? So aquatic is primarily because that's where their ancestor came from. So their ancestors is a lobe fin fish, which is an aquatic organism. So the first organism evolved from which of the following habitats? So the correct answer to this question is aquatic. I hope you take note of that. So let's go to the next question. So question 12 says anaerobic respiration differs from aerobic respiration by the production of dash. So option A, less amount of energy and water. Option B, greater amount of energy and alcohol. Option C, less amount of energy and alcohol. So let's look at these three options and get the correct answer to the question. Now, what is the difference between anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration? Aerobic respiration is an oxygen-based respiration. It is a respiration that requires the use of oxygen. While anaerobic is a respiration that does not require the use of oxygen. That is the first difference. Now the second difference is that in anaerobic respiration, the total amount of ATP that is produced is 2 molecules. So we produce 2 molecules of ATP in anaerobic respiration, while in aerobic respiration we produce 38 molecules of ATP altogether. 38 molecules of ATP. So you can say that the less in anaerobic respiration there's less amount of energy, while in aerobic respiration there's greater amount of energy. So that is another difference less amount of energy in anaerobic and greater amount of energy in what aerobic respiration. So another difference is that in anaerobic respiration, the byproducts are CO2 or CO2 and rather alcohol. Then in aerobic we have water. Aerobic we have water and what? CO2. So this is the byproduct in what? In aerobic, and this is the byproduct what? Anaerobic. So now let's go to the option again. So option A say less amount. So anaerobic respiration differs from aerobic respiration by the production of what? Less amount of energy, correct? And water, no. Water is not there. Greater amount of energy, wrong. And alcohol is correct, but this greater amount of energy is wrong. So the two options are wrong. So let's look at the third option. Less amount of energy, correct, and alcohol, correct. So the correct answer to this question is option C, which is what? Less amount of energy and alcohol. So let's go to the next question. So question 13 says amoeba moves by the use of A. Cilia, B. flagella, C. pseudopodia, D. cell membrane. Now to answer this question is very simple. You just need to know what is the locomotory organelle, or what does amoeba use, what organelle does amoeba use in movement or in locomotion. And the correct answer to this question is pseudopodia. Amoeba use pseudopodia to move from one place to another. Why flagella is not a locomotory organelle for amoeba, but flagella can be found in organisms like Chlamydomonas, I think Ecological also, and cilia can be found in Paramecium. Cell membrane is an organelle that acts like a gate for the cell, so like it protects the cell, what's called the other cell organelles. So the correct option to this question is pseudopodia. Amoeba moves by the use of pseudopodia. So let's go to the next question. Which of the following is not an excretory product? Which of the following is not an excretory product? Now let's analyze it. I know looking at the option, some of you would have picked water, but water is not the answer here, because water is an excretory product. So you can find water in your urine, you can find water in your sweat. So let's analyze it. Urea is an excretory product because you can find it in urine and also in your sweat. Feces is not an excretory product. Feces is an digested product because feces is gotten from what's called a process called digestion. That is removal of a solid unwanted solid substances. So feces is like an undigested food substances. So when you eat food and the one that is we cannot digest, that we ingest it out. So the removal of solid unwanted substances from the body is called digestion, and the solid unwanted substances, which is the digested product, is the feces. So feces is not an excretory product because excretory product are what product gotten from what unwanted what's called unwanted product from what metabolic reactions. Unwanted product for what metabolic reaction. So urea is an excretory product. Feces is not an excretory product. Water is an excretory product. Salt is an excretory product. So analyzing this now, so the correct answer to the question is feces, because feces is what is not an excretory product. I hope you get the question. So now let's go to the next question. Question 15 says the primary structure responsible for pumping blood for circulation through the mammalian circulatory system is the A. veins, B. right auricle, C. arteries, D. left ventricle. The question again, the primary structure responsible for pumping blood for circulation through the mammalian circulatory system is the left ventricle. So left ventricle is the one responsible for pumping blood for circulation through the mammalian circulatory system. Is the left ventricle that pumps blood around our body. And let's analyze the other option. Arteries. The arteries carries oxygenated blood away from the heart, except from the what? Pulmonary artery. The arteries carry what? Oxygenated blood away from the heart, except what? From the pulmonary what? Arteries. So the artery is not what? The correct option here. So another option, the right auricle is one of the what's called one of the chambers of what? Of the heart. And the veins, carry deoxygenated blood, to the heart. It pumps deoxygenated blood to the heart, except what? From pulmonary vein. All other veins pumps what? Deoxygenated blood to the heart, except what? From what? The pulmonary veins. So the right answer to this question is the left ventricle. So left ventricle helps what? To pump blood for circulation, through the what? Mammalian circulatory system. So let's go to what? Question 16. The function of trichocysts in Paramecium is dash. The function of what? Trichocysts in Paramecium is that A. Reproduction, B. Feeding, C. Defense, D. Respiration. Reproduction in Paramecium can be asexual or sexual. Binary fission is the sexual mode of reproduction in Paramecium, and conjugation is the sexual mode of reproduction in what? In Paramecium. So trichocyst is not functioning as what? A reproductive what? Organ or organelle. So feeding in Paramecium is carried out by the cilia. Cilia is still the same locomotory organelle, that is the organelle that Paramecium use for movement. You understand? So cilia is still the same locomotory organelle is what Paramecium use in feeding. So the Paramecium use cilia to create what? Water current, and which allows the food particles like bacteria to enter to their what? Oral what? Groove. So trichocyst does not function as what? Feeding. Now defense in Paramecium is the function of what? Trichocyst. Trichocyst helps to defend Paramecium. You understand? To protect Paramecium. So the right answer here is what? Defense. And respiration is being carried out by what? Diffusion. So diffusion what? Diffusion is what? The mode of respiration in Paramecium. So I hope you get that. So the correct answer to the question, the function of trichocysts in Paramecium, is option C, which is what? Defense. So let's go to the next question. Question 17 says that the food nutrient with the highest energy value is A. Protein, B. says carbohydrates, C. lipid, and D. Minerals. So let's get the correct answer to this question. And most of you will actually choose carbohydrates, because naturally we believe that carbohydrate is the energy giving food. Carbohydrate is not the answer, because carbohydrate does not give the highest energy value in all these options. So the food nutrient with the highest energy value is lipid. Protein gives 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrate also gives 4 calories per gram, but lipid gives 9 calories per gram. Take note of that. So the food nutrient with the highest energy value is lipid. So lipid gives more energy than carbohydrates. So but the difference between the energy of lipid and energy of carbohydrate is that in the expense or in the expedition of the energy, energy from carbohydrate is faster than that of the lipid. So the energy from the lipid is used maybe when relaxing, so because it's being expensed gradually, slowly, compared to what carbohydrates or energy from carbohydrate that can be used to do work that require greater energy. You understand? But the food nutrient with the highest energy value is lipid. So let's go to the next question. So question 18 says the type of variation where there are no remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals is the type of variation where there are no remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals is A. Continuous variation, B. Morphological variation, C. Physiological variation, discontinuous, and D. Discontinuous variation. Variation is just like the changes that we have in the same species, like can be structural changes or genetic changes that we have in the same species. You understand? So, and we have different types of we have two types of variation basically, to be continuous and discontinuous. But we also have morphological variation and physiological variation. Now, when you are talking about continuous variation, this continuous variation is a type of variation where there is a remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals. There is a remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals. So example of such variation is your height, the weight. So height or even the skin color. Your height, you can have someone that is tall and you can have someone that is short. That is variation of the same species. You understand? So that is a continuous variation. Discontinuous variation, on the other hand, is a type of variation where there are no remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals. So between the two extreme individuals, the type of variation that has no remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals is the discontinuous variation. And an example of such is your blood group. If you do your blood test or your blood group test and they tell you are O positive or O negative or AB positive, that is what you will be and till you die. There is no change at any point. So the rolling of your tongue is also a discontinuous variation. So I'm giving this example because you can mix them. So the rolling of your tongue, your blood group, they are examples of what discontinuous variation. So another type of variation is morphological variation, and this morphological variation is the variation that has to do with the structure of the body. You understand? The structure of the body. So if you can see this question in your JAMB exam that they will ask you, the type of variation that has to do with differences in the structure of the body is what morphological variation. While physiological variation has to do with the type of variation that has to do with the functions of the body. You understand? The differences that we have in the functions of the body. Functions and structure is two differences. Take note of that. So the correct answer to this question is discontinuous variation. Discontinuous variation is the type of variation where there are no remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals. So let's go to the next question. The next question says, one of these following is an example of discontinuous variation. I know you know the answer to this, right? From the previous question 18, you should be able to get the answer to this question straight up. So pick your answer before I explain it. So one of the following is an example of discontinuous variation. Have you picked your answer? So alright, let's go. Option A says the shape of the head. The shape of the head is not a discontinuous variation. The shape of the head has to do with the structure. That can be a morphological variation. So blood group, like I said, blood group is a discontinuous variation. So for more explanation, you can go to question 18 to get it. So blood group is a discontinuous variation. Body complexion is a continuous variation where there is a remarkable differences between the two extreme individuals. So the correct answer to this question is blood group. So now let's go to the next question. So the next question says bile is a greenish alkaline. Yes, bile is a greenish alkaline liquid which is stored in the dash: A. Gallbladder, B. liver, C. stomach, D. pancreas. Now let me explain something to you. You see, bile is produced in the liver, but bile is stored in the what? Gallbladder. Bile is produced what? In the liver, but is stored. So the gallbladder is directly below the liver. So once bile is produced in the liver, it is being stored in what? In the gallbladder. And during digestion, it's being released from the what? Gallbladder, and so that it can aid what? Digestion of what? Particularly fat, digestion of fat. And that's what we call emulsification of fat. That is the breakdown of what? Large molecules of fat into what? The smaller ones. So bile can be released from gallbladder what? To aid what? Digestion. So bile is stored in the gallbladder. So that is the correct answer to that what? Question. So let's go to the next question. So the next question says, which of the following distinguishes a plant cell from an animal cell? Which of the following distinguishes a plant cell from an animal cell? So option A says presence of mitochondria. Option B says absence of cell wall. Option C says presence of chloroplast. Option D says absence of nucleus. Now, if you look at this question is asking us the difference between the plant cell and an animal cell. Now, if you look at option A, presence of mitochondria, both animal cell and plant cell has mitochondria. Mitochondria is a like a cell organelle that acts as what? The powerhouse of the cell. That is also the site for respiration. That is where energy is being produced. So mitochondria is found both in plant cell and animal cell. So the energy produced in mitochondria is what the cell use, or what's called powering the activities, or let me say metabolic activities. So and also the absence of cell wall being option 2. So this one is not part of the difference. So this is the wrong option to this question. So option B, absence of cell wall. Now listen, plant cell has cell wall. Plant cells possess cell wall. So cell wall is not absent in plant cell. So this option will not work. It would have worked if they say presence of cell wall, because plant cell has cell wall, but animal cell does not have cell wall. Animal cell does not have cell wall, but plant cell has what? Cell wall. So it would have worked if they say presence of cell wall, but the question says absence of cell wall. So we cannot go with this as well. So let's look at the third option, saying the presence of chloroplast. So chloroplast is only found in the plant cell, because chloroplast is that's where chlorophyll is being produced, and chlorophyll is used in what? Photosynthesis, and it is only plant cell that photosynthesize. So because animal cell cannot what? Photosynthesize, because they are not autotrophic what's called organism. So autotrophic organism are organisms that can produce food themselves. So animal have to depend on plants or which are the main producers of food to feed and what for nutrition. Understand? But presence of chloroplast is present in plant cell but not in animal cell. So the correct option, the correct answer is option C. So let's look at option D. Option D says absence of nucleus. Nucleus is present both in plant cell and in animal cell. So this is wrong. So the correct option to the correct option to the what's called question is option C, which is what? Presence of what? Chloroplast. So let's look at the next question. The next question says, which of the following have no nuclear membrane? Which of the following options have what? No nuclear membrane. So let's look at the option. The option A, monads, B, fens, and C, mosses, D, talophytes. So mosses and what? Fens, talophytes. The three options here, they can be classified under a kingdom that we call plantae. Kingdom plantae. They can be classified as plants. So fens, they are vascular plants. They have what? Vessels. Mosses, they are non-vascular plants. Talophytes can be algae, lichens too can be talophytes, can be classified under talophytes. So these three categories, they are plants, you understand? But monarians Monomerans, this is where you find your bacteria and your archaebacteria or archaea, your archaebacteria or archaea. So this is where you find your bacteria. This is where you find your bacteria and your archaebacteria. Do you get it? So, and these monomerans, one thing about them is that they are prokaryotes. Prokaryote means that from the word, look at it, prokaryotes. They are prokaryotes. They are prokaryotes. 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 Pro means force, and karyote means nucleus. Nucleus. So because they have force nucleus, so they are what? Prokaryotes. So they are prokaryotic organism because they have what? Force nucleus, or they have no true nucleus, or you can say they have no definite nucleus, or at the same time you can say because they have what? Their nucleic material will lack what? Nuclear membrane. So they don't have a membrane bound nucleus. So that's why they are prokaryotes. But all these things, Moses, Talophyte, all of these are plants, and they are not prokaryotes. They are called eukaryotes because they have what? A nuclear, a membrane bound nucleus, and or you can say because they have true nucleus. So these three they are eukaryotes because they have true nucleus. So this one, option A, monomerans, have no nuclear membrane because they don't have a membrane bound nucleus. Nuclear membrane bound. You understand? So the correct option to this question is monomerans. So monomerans are the what? Are the prokaryotes because they lack what? Nuclear membrane. So I hope you get it. So let's go to the next question. The next question. So we are given an equation and we have to answer two questions based on the equation provided. So the question says use the diagram to answer the questions that follow. So the question number 23 says the part labeled I. So if you look at the equation here, you see that some parts are labeled. See, here is labeled I, and here is I, here is I, and we have IV here. And now if you look at this question very well, you discover that this question is from the topic photosynthesis, that is our plant nutrition. What is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is the process by which green plants or chlorophyll bearing organisms manufacture their own food in the presence of sunlight. By which green plants or chlorophyll bearing organisms manufacture their own food in the presence of what? Sunlight. By the use of what? Simple inorganic molecules, which are water and carbon dioxide, CO2. So what's supposed to be here is CO2, carbon dioxide. So, and water. You understand? So this S here is representing what? CO2. And then the aim of this photosynthesis is to produce glucose. And here you can see it's 1 mole of glucose. And you can see that we have what's called oxygen as byproduct. So 6 moles of what? Oxygen as what? Byproduct. So this equation is called photosynthetic equation. So it's a chemistry of reaction for what? Photosynthesis. Look at it very well. 6 moles of what? Carbon dioxide. 6 moles of what? Water. And 1 molecule of glucose. And 6 moles of what? Oxygen as what? Byproduct. So now we're going to answer the question 20 and 24 based on this what's called equation provided. Now the part labeled I is now the 4 conditions for photosynthesis to take place are 1, sunlight, because it's in the presence of what? Sunlight. So what's supposed to be here is sunlight. And the second condition is chlorophyll. There was the presence of what? Chlorophyll. That's why they are chlorophyll bearing organism. And the third condition is the simple inorganic molecule, which is carbon dioxide, and the other simple inorganic molecule, which is what? Water. So the part labeled I is going to be what? Sunlight. Correct. You are correct. So the part labeled I is what? Sunlight. So let's write it. Sunlight. So if you see sunlight in the option, you should pick it based on this what? Equation. So the question 24 says the part labeled I. The part labeled I. Oh my figure I is, now look at it. This is the part that is labeled I. Which is what? Says what's it called? moles of what? Carbon dioxide. So the part labeled III is CO2. CO2. All right. Do you get the question now? So let's go to the next question. All right. Question number 25. Dash connect muscles to bones. Dash connect muscles to bones. So option A says ligaments. Option B, cartilages. Option C, joints. Option D, tendons. So now let me explain all these options and let's pick the correct answer. Now ligaments. Ligaments is the structure that connects bones to bones, not muscles to bone. So ligaments is not the correct option. So now option B, cartilages. Cartilages are just like soft bones. Cartilages are not connecting muscle to bone or bones to bone. They are not connecting anything. They are just like soft bones. Do you get? So cartilages is also wrong. So the next option, joints. What is a joint? Joint is a space between two or more bones, or a joint is a point where two or more bones meet, and that point enables us to move our body. So like here there's a joint here, so joint is not connecting our muscles to bones, so joint is not also the correct answer. So tendons connect muscles to bones. So option D is the correct answer to this question. Tendons are connect muscles to bones. So they are the structure that connects muscles to bones. So on to the next question. Question 26. The human skeleton has how many bones in total? Guess. The human skeleton has how many bones in total? Have you picked your answer? Alright, so let's analyze it together. A 206, B 208, C 210, and D 214. So the correct answer here straight up is 206. The total number of bones in human skeleton is 206. Specifically, the adult is what? 206. Now let's look at the next question. If you are beginning from this video so far, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, because that is the best way you can help this YouTube channel. Alright, so question 27 says, which of the following is not a part of the central nervous system? So which of the following is not a part of the central nervous system? You need to understand that the nervous system is divided into two. We have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So the central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord, while the peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves. That is, we're talking about the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. So the cranial nerve related to the brain, the spinal nerves related to what? To the spinal cord. So cranial nerve and spinal nerves are not part of the central nervous system. They are categorized under what? Peripheral nervous system. So the question is, which of the following is not part of the central nervous system? So option A, brain is part of the nervous system, so that is not the answer. Spinal cord is part of the nervous system, so that is not the answer. Obviously, the answer to this question is option C, which is what? Cranial nerves. So cranial nerves is the answer to this question. So now let's go to the next question. So the next question says, the junction between two neurons is called a dash. So the junction between two neurons is called a dash. A, dendrite. B, synapse. C, axon. D, myelin sheath. Now let me explain this quickly. Dendrite is like a neural process, or let me say a process and this process helps in carry what? Electrical transmission, or what we call action potential, to the central nervous system. Why synapse? Synapse is the junction between two neurons. Synapse is what? The junction between two neurons. Axon is like a dendrite. It's also a process. So, but it's a process that takes electrical transmission, electrical potential, or let me say that takes action potential away from the central nervous system and to other tissues. Now axon and dendrite, they are both processes, but they are not junction between two neurons. So the junction between two neurons is synapse. So synapse is what the correct answer here. So myelin sheath is just like a structure that covers the axon and is produced by some particular cells that we know as neuroglial cells. Neuroglial cells. So these neuroglial cells also assist the neurons. So their cells are also produced in the peripheral nervous system, and they assist what the neurons. So the neuroglial cells produce myelin sheath, and this myelin sheath covers the axon, and which enables what we call or which increase electrical transmission. So it makes the electrical transmission to be fast. So that is the function of the myelin sheath. So the correct option or the correct answer to this question is synapse. I hope you get that. So let's go to the next question. Alright, so the next question says a deficiency in iodine can lead to A. Diabetes, B. Goiter, C. Anemia, D. Cretinism. So let's look at these options and get the correct answer. So diabetes. So what is diabetes? So diabetes is a condition where there is high amount of sugar or glucose in the blood, and it's due to the fact that there is low production of insulin, which is an hormone that regulates blood sugar level. So that decreases the blood sugar level. So you understand? So a metabolic condition that leads to that is diabetes. So which is not a deficiency in iodine. So diabetes is not the answer. So option B, goiter. Goiter is a disease that is caused by deficiency in iodine, and the way it occurs is that it occurs here in the neck, where the thyroid gland that is located below the Adam's apple here is being enlarged due to the fact that there is not enough iodine supply, because the thyroid gland needs more iodine to produce thyroid hormones. But if there is deficiency in iodine, the thyroid glands will enlarge so that it can trap iodine in the blood. So when the thyroid gland enlarge, it leads to a condition or a disease that we know as goiter. So a deficiency in iodine can lead to goiter. So that is the correct answer. So but let's analyze the other option. Anemia. Anemia is simply a condition where there is low amount of healthy red blood cells or hemoglobin in the body, and this can lead to low blood count, and so this is not the correct option. So D, cretinism. Cretinism is similar to goiter. Some people might pick this because they are similar, but this is wrong. Let me now explain it. Cretinism is a condition where thyroid gland cannot produce enough thyroid hormones. So the other name for it is hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism, where thyroid glands cannot produce enough thyroid hormones. That is cretinism. So now let's go to the next question. So question 30 says, which of the following secretes insulin and glucagon? Which of the following secretes insulin and glucagon? Now, so option A says thyroid gland. Thyroid gland does not secrete insulin and glucagon, though it secretes some other hormones like tyrosine. So, but it does not secrete insulin and glucagon. So thyroid gland is not the answer. You can get more hormones that is being secreted by thyroid gland. So now let's look at this next option, adrenal gland. So adrenal gland secretes other hormones but does not secrete insulin and glucagon. Adrenal gland secretes hormones like adrenaline, so but does not secrete insulin and glucagon. So it's not also the option. Can get more hormone that is being secreted by adrenal gland. So but let's look at the next option, pancreas. So pancreas secretes hormones called insulin and glucagon. So it's pancreas that secretes insulin and what? Glucagon. And the function of insulin is to what? Reduce what's called the blood sugar level. It's what? Decrease or reduce what? The blood sugar level. So it is produced, it's being produced in the body when there is what? High amount of sugar in the what? In the blood. So like on the contrary, glucagon also is being produced in the body when there is low amount of sugar in the blood. So glucagon is like exact opposite of insulin. So when there's low amount of sugar in the blood, glucagon is being produced by what? The gland we call the pancreas gland. Some of you might want to ask a question like, this pancreas also secretes some enzymes. Yes, you are correct. Pancreas has two functions: endocrine functions, that is when it secretes hormones, and there's exocrine functions, that is when it secretes enzymes like digestive enzymes like amylase, lipase. You understand? So pancreas can secrete enzymes and can secrete hormone, insulin, and what? Glucagon. Now the correct answer here is what? Pancreas. So let's analyze this one. Pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland is also called the master gland. Take note. And the reason is that this pituitary gland is being called master gland because it also stimulates the functions of other glands. So it produces hormones like thyroid stimulating hormone. You understand? So thyroid, so that stimulates what? Thyroid glands. So it produces hormones that will stimulate other glands. You understand? So that is what pituitary gland. It produces hormone like cortisol as well. So you can get more hormones that is being produced by pituitary gland. So that is that about the question. So the correct answer to the question is what? Pancreas. So let's move to the next question.
If you have been enjoying this video so far and you want us to do the physics and the chemistry versions for the 40 likely JAMB chemistry and physics questions in your JAMB exam, let me know in the comments and I'll make arrangements for it. I'll see you guys. So let us continue with the teaching.
Alright, the next question is, which eye defect is also called short-sightedness? So this question is on sense organs and it's talking about eye defects. So which eye defect is also called short-sightedness or nearsightedness? So we have option A, myopia, option B, hypermetropia, option C, astigmatism, option D, presbyopia. So now option A, myopia. Myopia is a condition where is a condition that is also known as short-sightedness or nearsightedness, and it occurs when there are many causes of myopia, but the one I would like to emphasize on is that when the eyeball is too long, and this myopia the condition that can make you to see things that are what close to you, but you will not be able to see things that are distant. So that is myopia. Hypermetropia is the opposite of myopia. It's also called long-sightedness, and it's one of the causes is that the eyeball is too short. So and this hypermetropia, you'll be able to see distant things and you will not be able to what? To see things that are very close. This myopia can be corrected by concave lens. Take note. And hypermetropia can be corrected by convex lens. So now astigmatism. So astigmatism is a condition whereby you have a distorted or a vision or a blurred vision, and is due to the fact that the shape of the cornea or lens is become abnormal. Like the shape of the the lens of the cornea is supposed to be curved, but if the shape of the lens is like given an oval shape, it can lead to a condition called astigmatism. So when there's an irregular shape of the cornea or the lens, and we have the last option, that is what? Presbyopia. Presbyopia is caused by old age, and it occurs between the age of 40 upward. You understand? So from the age of 40 is a condition whereby you begin to see, you begin to have defect in seeing things that are close by, and it gets worsened over time. So as you go older, it gets worsened. So it is a condition that you find in that is caused by what? The old age. So that is what? Presbyopia. So in all of these options, as I've explained, which is the correct answer? The correct answer to the question is what? Myopia. Myopia is the correct answer. Mark that, which is option A. Now let's go to the next question. Which of the following is an inherited inability to distinguish certain colors? Which of the following is an inherited inability to distinguish certain colors? So we have A. This is supposed to be a bonus question. You can guess which right. A. Color blindness. B. Night blindness. And C. Astigmatism. D. Presbyopia. I just explained presbyopia and astigmatism. Now let's go to night blindness. So night blindness is just talking about inability to see at night, or to see at when there is low light. You understand? So but color blindness is the inability to distinguish certain colors. So the correct answer to this question is color blindness, which is what? Option A, color blindness. So let's go to the what? To the next question. Alright, so the next question is the blood component that has the greatest affinity for oxygen is the dash. The blood component that has the greatest affinity for oxygen is the dash. So let's analyze this option. Option A says lymphocytes. Option B, leukocytes. Option C, erythrocytes. Option D, thrombocytes. So lymphocytes is a type of white blood cells, and this type of white blood cells, they are found in what? In the immune system. They help in defending the body against diseases, foreign foreign agents, or let's say cancerous cells. You understand? So lymphocyte, that is lymphocyte, and they are not the the type of cell that has the greatest affinity for oxygen. So they are not the answer. So leukocytes, these are white blood cells. Leukocytes are what? White blood cells. So and erythrocytes is another name for red blood cells. And the red blood cells has a pigment that we know as hemoglobin. This hemoglobin is a red pigment that helps in collection of blood, and also this hemoglobin is a chemical compound that has a great affinity for oxygen. So it combines with oxygen to form a compound known as oxyhemoglobin. You understand? So this hemoglobin makes the red blood cell to have the greatest affinity for oxygen. So the correct option in this question is erythrocyte. Erythrocyte. So thrombocyte is also known as the blood platelets. So lymphocyte, leukocyte, and thrombocyte are not the correct options. So the correct option here is the erythrocyte. So let's go to the next question. The next question is on association. It says the relationship between sharks and remorar fish. So we need to learn different types of association or relationship, or what we know as association between organisms. And before we can answer this question, now option A says mutualism. Mutualism is a type of association between two organisms of different species where both organisms benefit from each other. They benefit from the relationship. You understand? And parasitism is the second option. And parasitism is a relationship that exists between two organisms of different species where one organism benefits and the other organism is harmed. So one benefits and the other organism is harmed. So the next type of relationship we need to understand is commensalism. Commensalism is a type of relationship or association between two organisms of different species where one organism benefits and the other organism is not harmed. So it does not benefit but is not harmed. It's different for parasitism where one organism benefits but the other is harmed. But commensalism, one organism benefits and the other organism does not benefit though but is not harmed. So the next relationship here is predation. This is just a relationship between organism we know as predator and the other organism and the other organism we know as prey. So the predator are the powerful organisms while the prey are less powerful. Like a lion and a goat, for instance. So the relationship between a lion and a goat can be predation, because the lion is acting as predator. You want to kill or feed on what the goat, while the goat has less power to fight the lion back. So the goat is serving as what, prey in that case. So now let's go back to the question, the relationship between sharks and removal fish. Now this removal fish stays on the skin of sharks, and this when they stay there, as when they live there, they get nutrients from the leftover scraps on the skin of the sharks, and also they get free transportation, because as the shark is swimming, the shark will transport them from one point to another. Meanwhile, the shark is not benefiting anything from the removal fish, but the shark is not harmed. So what type of relationship is between two organisms where one benefits and the other is not harmed? The correct answer is what? Commensalism. Correct. So the answer to this question is commensalism. So now let's go to the next question. Alright, the next question says, what is the primary source of energy in an ecosystem? So option A says water, option B says sunlight, option C says soil, option C says oxygen. Well, the primary source of energy in an ecosystem is sunlight, because we get light energy from the sunlight, and in which the producers or the main producers of food, which are plants, get this light energy in production of or manufacturing of food. So the primary source of energy in an ecosystem is the sunlight. So let's go to the next question. So the next question says, which of the following is an example of a biotic factor in an ecosystem? So a biotic factor are factors that has life in them, they are living factors. So which comprises of living things. Now if you look at this option, we have temperature, option B soil, option C plants, option D wind. So which of these options has life in them? Is plants. So biotic factor here is plants. So the only biotic factor here we have in the question is plants. So the correct answer is what? Plants. So other options, they are abiotic factors, and soil is any factor that is related to soil is called edaphic factor. So temperature, wind, and others, so they are abiotic factors. So now let's go to the next question. The next question is, what is the difference between smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum? So let me quickly explain this. It is smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum are two different types of what? Endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum is just network of membranes, so that can be divided into what? Smooth and rough. So the rough, let me start from the rough endoplasmic reticulum. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is made rough. It's like endoplasm that is rough due to the presence of ribosome. So it's characterized due to the presence of what? Ribosome, and which makes it what? Rough. And this ribosome is like a cell organ that is responsible for protein synthesis. It's responsible for what? Protein synthesis. So this ribosome on the surface of rough endoplasmic reticulum produces what? Protein. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum, on the other hand, does not have what? Ribosome. That's why it's smooth. So and this one is responsible for lipid synthesis. You understand? So these are the differences I want you to know between what? Smooth endoplasmic reticulum and what? Rough endoplasmic reticulum. So you can read more on them. So now let's go to the next question. The next question says, the part of the inner ear that is responsible for hearing is A. Circulus, B. Utriculus, C. Cochlea, D. Ampulla. So circulus, utriculus, cochlea, and ampulla. So all of these are part of the inner ear. So the ear, we have the outer ear, so the middle ear and the inner ear. So that is the middle ear, so and the inner ear. So the inner ear, is responsible for what's called hearing and balancing. You understand? Hearing and balancing. And this circulus, utriculus, and ampulla are the one that is responsible for balancing. Balancing, that is, they help in stability of the body position when there is a vibration, sound vibration. so coming into the what, the hair. So but cochlea is the part of the inner ear that is responsible for what, hearing. So the correct option here is what, cochlea. So the correct option here is what, cochlea. So now let's go to the last part of this what, video. The next question is, what is the largest organ in the body? What is the largest organ in the, this is a very simple question, it should be a bonus question to you. So the largest organ in the body is skin, and skin is an what, excretory organ in what, in man. So skin is an excretory organ, is what, it helps us to eliminate or what's called water, salt, urea in form of what, sweat. So the largest organ in the body is what, is skin. So now let's go. The next question say, who is the father of genetics? So who is the father of genetics? So the name of the father of genetics is Gregor Mendel. Let me write it here. Gregor Mendel. All right. So that is the name of the father of genetics. And also they can also ask you that who is the father of sex? I know you know that, right? Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke is the what? Let me write this one here. Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke is the father of sex. So Robert Hooke is what, is the father of what, sex. They can ask you that one as well. So now let's go to the last question. Now listen attentively. Now, how many chromosomes will be present in a gamete if the somatic cell has 8 chromosomes? How many chromosomes will be present in a gamete if the somatic cells have 8 chromosomes? Option A says 16, option B 4, option C 8, and option D 6. Now let's analyze this. What is a somatic cell? Now, in cell division, there are 2 types of cell division. We have mitotic division and meiotic division, or you say mitosis and what, meiosis. So mitosis occurs in somatic cell. These are somatic cells are non-reproductive or what, cell. So they are just said that, you know, or undergo growth by what, cell or by dividing, so they don't reproduce. But why meiotic division has to do what, has to occur in what, reproductive or cells or in gametes. So you understand the difference is that somatic cell has to do with the one that does not require what, that are non-reproductive or cell. So like the other body part, so that is not an reproductive or organ. So now, how many chromosomes will be present in a gamete if the somatic cell has 8 chromosomes? Now, the somatic cells in nature, they appear in 2 or in pair. Let me say they appear in pair, or what we call diploid. Do you understand? So diploid, that is, they have 2 sets of chromosomes. Now, the 2 sets of chromosomes, one is from the father, one is from the mother. Now, in the case of gamete is just an haploid cell. So gamete is just half of the somatic cell. Haploid is, there's 1 set of chromosomes, half of what, the somatic cell. So the question is, if we have the cell, you say how many chromosomes will be present in a gamete if the somatic cell has 8 chromosomes? That means if the somatic cell is, which is diploid, has 8, the gamete, which is haploid, is going to have half of this, which is what, 4. 8 divided by 2 is what, 4. So the correct option here is option B, which is what, 4. That's going to be the end of this video. If you have been enjoying this video from the beginning, I would like you to like, comment and share, and also don't forget to subscribe. And if you want us to do the chemistry and physics version of this or series, you can let us know in the comment section. Thank you. I wish you the best in your JAMB exam.